Oh, Donna Shapiro. Hi. Welcome. Welcome. Jim Ruxin. Shabbat Shalom. Karen Sarachik. Shabbat Shalom, Karen. And Brad from Denver, right? Denver? Wherever Brad is.
Yep, from Denver.
Okay. So Tamara and I have a wonderful friend in Denver, and somehow we're going to have you match up because she's brilliant and you're brilliant, and that would make a great conversation.
Thank you, Rabbi.
She publishes a blog every week, and I've actually learned enough that I only go to the dictionary 3 or 4 times. No, it's lovely. Okay. Calendar. Oh, first, Baruch Atah.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav utzivanu la'asok divrei Torah.
I see Mara and Harv. I see Natalie. I think I've greeted everybody. If not, you know where to find my lawyer. Okay. Jim Ruxin, you have something on July 6th, 7:30 p.m.
Yes, it's this coming Thursday. It's a film we're going to discuss called The Children Act. And it stars Emma Thompson, who gives a wonderful performance as a British or Canadian judge who has to decide whether or not to force a family and a 17-year-old boy to accept a blood transfusion because he has leukemia and he'll die without it. Because he's under the age of 18, the court is the final arbiter in whether or not the hospital is permitted to give him the transfusion. So there's a religious issue there, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, right to your own body, all kinds of rich issues in that problem alone. And then it's complicated by the fact that Emma Thompson's husband is leaving her because there's no room in her life for their relationship. She's so devoted to her judgeship. It's further complicated by a move that the judge does. She leaves the courtroom to go to the hospital to meet the young man. And this presents a whole new realm in ethics and jurisprudence that is really what the film is about. You know, the effect of judgment on our personal lives. Is it about the law or the human connection? It's a wonderful film. I hear that Risa has seen it, and I see it even if you don't want to discuss it on Thursday night. It's really good. Emma Thompson never disappoints, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it and be challenged by it and think it really thoughtful. Thursday at 7:30, and you can reach out to me for the link or go to the Temple Bulletin at info@wbtla.com.
Super. And you know, certainly we don't have concerns about the courts intruding in our lives. So that's
not this week.
Not this week. Mindy, what's up?
Well, 2 things. Our sales of honey jars are starting very soon. Lynn, maybe you could bring a bottle next week to show. They're going to be $14, and it's a bottle of honey. It's $14 each that you send to friends and family. It'll arrive around New Year's, Rosh Hashanah, New Year's, and it's just a lovely gift. People really appreciate it, to wish them a sweet year. It's sold through Ort, but we provide the link and easy access for doing it. On Tuesday, Susie arranged for a wonderful tour of the Karsh Center. And when it gets closer to opening at Resnick campus, Susie and I will inform you how to become a volunteer and what volunteer opportunities there will be, but that will not be happening until December or January. So we'll keep you posted, and it's going to be a distribution center, but there still are lots of volunteer opportunities at the Glazer campus, and we had a great opportunity to see the 400 people in line on Tuesday waiting to get their 2 bags of groceries. It was just wonderful to see all the services and the wonderful people that work there.
Super. How long have you been selling honey for Rosh Hashanah? How long is the program?
Probably 10 years.
Long time.
Long time. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. wonderful thing. All those things are wonderful. July 4th on Tuesday, our cat has already reserved a place under the bed where she will choose to stay until July 5th. So that's okay. And July 12th is our next current event. July 12th, then July 28th, and then August 9th. Those are the three we have scheduled into the summer. If attendance hold, we could probably put up another one or two. Just as a quickie, this morning I read in the Jerusalem Post a whole article about the Jewish city, Israeli city of Efrat, E-F-R-A-T. We spoke about it Wednesday, and it talks about typical settlement, relationships with Bethlehem. They have a very close relationship with the Arab villages all around. And then it goes on to talk about vibrant Jewish settlement. 12, okay, this, Eric, you'll figure this out, 12 kilometers south of Jerusalem. And it is beautiful. And it was established with the aid and with the support, and it talks about the of an Orthodox rabbi, and how Efrat negotiates a secular and Orthodox balance. And I'm not going to go any further into that. The question came up because of our discussion of what's modern Orthodox. And that city, in so many ways, reflects, in my mind, the best of what the term modern Orthodox means. And Shlomo Riskin, who is the rabbi co-founder of Efrat, gives us an example of what Orthodoxy in the world. Let's see, Tamara says Efrat has a seminary that ordains women rabbis in the Orthodox community. Okay, so there you go. We just can't speak in bulk terms about Orthodox. There are many interesting strains of Orthodoxy, and the modern Orthodoxy of Efrat is absolutely one of the good promises for the future. So there is that. Okay, any other date questions, calendar questions? If not, we are moving on. Susie, did I see your hand go up, or then it went down? Or
I just wanted to clarify that the Shabbats at Froman's are going to continue through the summer, but you'll be hearing from Barbara Heckman and not me. I'm taking a sabbatical for the summer.
If you want to attend, you could just let me know and I'll forward it to Barbara.
I'm sorry, Susie, I don't remember my voting on your sabbatical.
I'm an alumnus and I'm an emeritus, and therefore I can choose my own sabbatical.
Okay, all right. Our Sedra this Shabbat morning is a combined Sedra, double Sedra of Chukat and Balak. It begins on Numbers 19, verse 1 and following. And it's just, God, I don't ever draw comparisons with the middle of Leviticus, but Numbers is so filled with great texts and great stories and just interesting things. For example, in Chukat, there's the term chukah. We're not going to talk about it today, but a chukah is a religious rule which could never have been created by logic and reason. A chukah, and the chukah talked about in Numbers 19 and following is the red heifer, the parah adumah. And it is one of the weirdest, strangest, most interesting situations that goes on yet today, because yet today the Orthodox have been pursuing the creation of a red heifer, and they're trying to raise it, and I don't know. Anyway, a chukah, that's in Parah Adumah. Very interesting. We're going to go directly to the death of Aaron, which is not normally a highlight of these sedras, but it's very interesting. We go to 1028 in the Plout. 1028 in the Plout. And there we go.
Chapter and verse.
1028, and then verse 22, chapter 20, verse 22.
Is this Numbers, Rabbi?
Numbers 20, verse 22, and actually it'll
Verse
go
20, 22, okay.
The WRJ, it's 925.
Thank you. Now, here's the background. The background is that in the text that we study, in the Torah itself, later in the book of Samuel and Kings, the Aaronite priests win. There is a struggle between the priests who descend from Aaron, the priests who descend from Moses. Miriam apparently does not have descendants. It's a question. We would expect that the editors of our Sedra would make the death of Aaron a very big deal. When Moses dies, goes up on the mountain, the whole thing, there is major conversation at the end of Deuteronomy regarding the death of Moses. Aaron, despite the fact that his family wins out and he becomes the progenitor of the priests of the Kohen Levi group, he's given very short shrift in the text. The editors could have done more. They didn't choose to. Let's look at this. And verse 22, page 1028, chapter 20. Setting out from Kaddish, the Israelites arrived at Mount Hor, boundary of Edom, very close to the promised land. God says, let Aaron be gathered to his kin. He is not to enter the land that I have assigned to the Israelite people, because you disobeyed my command about the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar, bring them up on Mount Hor, strip Aaron of his vestments, put them on his son Eleazar. There Aaron shall be gathered unto the dead. Moses did as God commanded, went up to Mount Hor. He, in the sight of the whole community, stripped Aaron of his vestments, put them on the son Eleazar, and Aaron died. When Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, the community knew Aaron had breathed his last. The house of Israel bewailed Aaron 30 days.
How did he die?
Oh, okay, good. We have what we have. We don't have what we don't have. The Midrash will talk about God kissing Moses and a whole variety of things. Aaron apparently dies. And that's a good question. It's interesting. There's no focus. There's a lot to look at here. Steve. Steve Miller?
And hear you.
But one of the reasons the death of Aaron isn't played up is because it doesn't highlight conflict or anything else. You want it to be a given, and everything is natural, and it's not an event. It's akin to the king is dead, long live the king.
Okay, it is that, Steve, but in this little text, it also says it's not quite an ordinary death because Aaron is dying in punishment for what was done at Meribah, the waters of Meribah, the revolt of the people, the water, the rock, the whole business. And Aaron's death is a punishment. Now, it doesn't mean he didn't live a long life, but he dies as punishment, the way Moses will be described as dying with punishment. By the way, as long as we're there, you know that I pick and choose about translation. Look at verse 24. Let Aaron be gathered to his kin, not to enter the land, because you disobeyed my command. You disobeyed. The Hebrew says you, plural, have disobeyed. The English says whatever the hell you means. And it's unclear. I think that's a real fault in the translation. The Hebrew, very clear. Asher meritem, you, plural, et pi lemei meriva. You disobeyed my commandment, you collectively, you too, Aaron and Moses. A little pick about translation. But when you look at the word you, that's why some people, I thought it was only in Atlanta, are committed to you and y'all.
Robert Alton's translation says you both.
And there just is more clarity. Okay, I'm going forward. Interesting stuff here. The death of Aaron. One of the questions the rabbis note in verse 26, Aaron kind of figured out why he was being taken to the top of Mount Nebo. Question the rabbis will ask, should the dying be told that they are dying? This event raises that question. Marvelous question. Any thoughts? Any experiences? Should the dying, Rebecca?
I worked in the nursing home industry for 26 years. I think most people know that they're dying.
Okay.
There's an intrinsic sense that time is not on their side. I truly believe that because most people seem to shut down anyhow as time gets close. They stop drinking and eating. Unless it's something sudden like a heart attack, which usually doesn't happen.
Yep, thank you. Hera or Harv, whoever.
I have a kind of a sidestep to that question, which is I'm trying to figure out if these verses imply that death is a punishment or death is a blessing because of verse 24 saying Aaron will be gathered up unto his people.
Yes.
And some of the commentary I've read says that it's positive to rejoin your
People.
but then it's also death.
Yeah, but because you disobeyed reads like punishment.
Like punishment, right? So there's a kind of a dichotomy in terms of whether this is punishment or reward.
Well, you know me in binaries. I'm going to reject the binary and say it's both. There is a reward for his life of service. There is punishment for the time of death. And I think that that's a fair statement on Aaron. I mean, Aaron had, let's face it, folks, a pretty checkered history. Dare I mention the golden calf?
Yep.
Aaron had a checkered history. Dare I mention Miriam and Aaron gossiping against Moses? So anyway, Aaron gets a beautiful reward gathered to his people, but his death at this moment is viewed by the text, I think by tradition, as punishment. Risa.
I don't think the death is the punishment. I think death is the means in order to punish, and the punishment is that he can't enter the land. I think that's true for Moses as well as for Aaron. Death itself happens. It's not the punishment.
Okay, I'm good there. Any other comment? We're going to move on. This is fun. I see Susie.
I'm a little confused. When you say his punishment, was he kind of a martyr because he didn't put up any kind of a disagreement, or he didn't put up any kind of this isn't fair, you're killing me for what I did? He just went up the mountain and did he know he was going up the mountain to die?
I think Aaron's role in the water rebellion is collaborator, and he wasn't just an innocent bystander. And you tell me, Susie, you read this, you read what I read. Moses tells Aaron in the midst of all the people, so all the people are gathered around Mount Hor, and Aaron and his eldest son, Aaron in his full priestly vestments, is walked up to the top of the mountain in the full view of the people. I think Aaron knew pretty much what was cooking. I would suspect. And, you tell me Davids show up, be in a tuxedo, and, something's going to be happening. You don't expect a quick trip to In-N-Out Burger. It's different. I think he knew. I think it's fair to say.
Rabbi,
Wait,
I
Rabbi,
I have an addendum.
I see my name being called Rabbi. I see Cindy and then somebody else called.
yeah, it's Brad.
Brad. Okay, Cindy and Brad.
But wasn't the procedure that everyone who had been a slave in Egypt was to die before they reached the Holy Land, and that Moses was probably the only one, except for the extras, that hadn't been a slave? So this was the common punishment, that everyone would die before arriving.
Okay, so here we go. That's a great point. Let me just blend a little bit. The people who are supposed to die in the desert after the rebellion of the spies, remember the 12 spies, 10 brought back the report, the whole business, were those below military age, basically. They would stay alive. Everyone else would die. The as far as the rabbis understood it, it wasn't that every living Israelite died in the desert. It is that every living Israelite who departed Egypt of military age, give it approximately 20, those all would die, with the exception of the 2 spies who brought back a good report.
So it
Okay?
was always the plan that Aaron and Moses would die.
In that context, yes. It's not said that way, but they're in the collective. Moses didn't like that very much. I want to mention as well, just because the text, it reflects ancient Jewish practice. Do you see that all the house of Israel bewailed Aaron 30 days?
30 days.
What do we call the 30 days?
Motion.
Shloshim. And there it is. So 3,000 years ago, we still or yet are created Shloshim. It just sticks out. It's kind of like, oh, we still do that. Yes, we do. Risa.
It says in verse 23 that God said to Moses and Aaron, let Aaron be gathered to his kin. So he knew.
One can assume. I think Aaron knew. Yes, I think Aaron knew. And thank you.
Rabbi,
Yes, please.
Rabbi, is there some way to look at this as like a bookend to the story of Abraham and Isaac, both of whom climbed a mountain, father, son, a potential victim, in one case the son, in the other case the father, with that question in both instances of what did the potential victim know of what was going to befall him? Is there some way of seeing this as a bookend to that story?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you can. I think the basic warning from this is don't go mountain climbing with an older friend. I think, come on, let's we're gonna climb this mountain, wear a good suit. No, I think I'm busy whenever you want to schedule that. Yeah, it is a kind of a bookend, and these stories are interesting. Going up onto the hill or the mountain, Brad, also interesting, because Moses goes up to die. Aaron goes up to die. Isaac is led up to die. It doesn't happen, but he's led up to die. So, yeah, it's an interesting environment. Please note, Aaron, number 2 to Moses, is going to die, and the camp mourned for Shloshim. And then what happened? Life went on. No one says anything about that. But as I read it this week again, it's fascinating. They didn't, oh my God, the father of the priest, the one who was Moses' interpreter to Pharaoh, the continuity, the person, the guy who knows all the rituals, he's gone, we're lost. No, it's sad. Aaron died. Forgive me. 30 days later, what's for breakfast? And we go on. We go on. Okay, Larry.
I am intrigued by the ceremony on the top of the mountain of Aaron stripping his vestments and putting them on his son. I'm not quite sure how to view that.
Go one more sentence. What is it?
So in one context, it's a blessing to see your children carry on after you. In another sense, it seems humiliating to have to pass that off earlier than you would like.
Oh, that reminds me of the Dreyfus in and the French stripped him of all his, he did a good job in the military, but they still stripped him of his rank and thing. And it was quite embarrassing to Dreyfus what the French did to him because he was Jewish. Capiche?
Yeah, Larry, I think that's really interesting. When I say things like that, that means I haven't thought about it. I think that's very interesting. In other words, how was Aaron feeling? It's not just my son is taking over the head of the corporation, but removing his garments, putting them on his son.
Yeah, it is not clear to me whether this is a reward or part of the punishment.
Thank you, and I'm not going to push to an answer because I have to think about it.
Yeah.
But thank you for raising something I had not thought about. And you're not welcome here any further.
I don't have an answer to the question.
Okay, Herman.
Two things, Rabbi. Number one, on the basis of Aaron putting the clothes on his son, isn't it the same? Wouldn't that be the same as the high priest anointing?
You know, I'm called back to my homeland, where my queen was dying. I've adopted the UK as a homeland. Belarus is not very popular today, so I'm setting aside my real homeland, Belarus, going to UK. There was so much interest in having Queen Elizabeth give the crown to Charles, to retire and to let him be king while she yet lived. And she refused that. That's Herman, that's a connection, if you will. She refused that. She's queen until she dies. And Charles, I think, had to wait 75 years or something to succeed his mother. It was a very long wait. So there's one thing. I'm also, your question raised the remembrance of a pope who retired.
Unusual.
And the current pope became pope in the presence of his predecessor, very unusual. And as it turned out, very problematic. Even among popes, very problematic. Herman, did you have a second comment?
No, second. Now I have a question. What is the time frame from the Exodus of Aaron's demise?
38 more years.
Yes, it's relatively early. It's relatively early, and thank you for that. It's early. Mount Hor, the Hebrew Hor Hahar, is very often conflated with Mount Sinai. And then confused later. I mean, no one is really quite sure, but it is early in the desert wandering, but not in the first 2 years, 38 more years.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I think I responded to every question. So let's go to the phrase. We had picked up on it. Aaron had breathed his last, right? He'll be gathered unto the dead. Gathered unto the dead, I believe, in ancient Israelite practice is not the same as died. Apparently, the most common burials in the biblical period, and if you want to speak about Bronze and Iron Age, the most common burials are in family tombs, either caverns or something, natural cave or something that's been carved out. And a family would use such a tomb for the burial of relatives over the years, over the generations. This was called gathered to the ancestors. Burial in the tomb, in the place where the ancestors were. What is the most famous burial place for generations in Jewish life?
Yad Vashem, is it? No.
No, the cave in Hebron.
The cave in Hebron.
Machpelah.
Good, Cindy, very good. You gave the right answer, but what's it called?
Machpelah.
Machpelah, right. Okay. So the cave of Machpelah is assumed to be the cavern underground thing in which Adam and Eve are buried. Abraham is buried. Sarah's buried. Isaac is buried. Leah is buried. Where's Rachel?
On the way to Bethlehem.
You got it. Okay. She didn't make it into the tomb or whatever. She had to be standing there ready to weep as the family went off into exile. So burial vaults were used over generations. The body was wrapped in linen. No pyramids, despite the Egyptian example. I think that's kind of important because if not everybody, when Aaron died, didn't he deserve a little pyramid? Something in the style of the Egyptians? And the answer is no. This is a rejection of the Egyptian celebration of death as the entry into the next world.
But wasn't there also no embalming and preservation of organs?
That's the same answer. Not only that, but after a period of time, maybe a couple of years, the family would enter the cavern, take the bones, and place them in an ossuary or a bone assembly area. That's the final burial. So the burial in ancient times, as exemplified here, Aaron is gathered to his people. We don't know where that is, but he was placed in a tavern. That could have been fun. No, he was placed in a cavern, and after a period of time, his bones were moved. Why is that image important? Think of your biblical text. Donna.
Well, Jacob makes Joseph promise to take his bones back to Israel. So, and I think also Joseph's bones were brought back up there too.
Give me more. You're right, and you're right. Give me more. If I say Ezekiel.
Oh, that's a whole, yeah, there's some dream that Ezekiel has about the dead bones rising from the grave. And yeah,
But
I don't know exactly.
What rises from the grave
are the people.
Bones. Right?
Sorry?
The bones rise from the grave. They are the ones who are, responsible for whatever will come next. The body is gone. Okay? 2 stages. Let the body sit, be reduced to bones. The bones are then placed in an ossuary or some sort of family receptacle. Risa, do you remember the ossuary? We went to an ossuary. You might ask, what do you want to do this evening? You want to go to theater? Well, let's go to a bone gathering place. So at the foot of Mount Sinai, there is an ossuary of the bones of all of the monks who lived in the Santa Caterina Monastery at the foot of Mount Sinai. So we walk in, dead center is a saint dressed in his garments, just kind of bony. I mean, he is bones and the garments. And then to one side are the kneecaps, the shoulders, the elbows, the whatever. It was a well-tended ossuary. And I have to say that I wasn't unhappy leaving there. But that's an ossuary. People did that. And then for Ezekiel, it became the image of resurrection. Can these bones live? Ezekiel asks, right? Can these bones, not the body, bones live? And we were with our son's family last night for Shabbat dinner and therefore missed services. We were there to welcome them back from a 2.5-week trip to Jordan, to Egypt, Zurich, whatever they did. But they visited the Cairo Museum and brought back a picture of mummies, but unwrapped mummies. So there was it King Tut? Was it Tut? Lying on his, I assume on his back. He kind of, his skin is.
It was because his feet were up.
Yeah, his skin was darkened. It happens. And he's covered with, a linen cover of some sort. You can see the head. And at the bottom, his feet are sticking up like that, or the bones thereof. And so that was a good Shabbos experience. Okay. So there we are. Any question about Aaron's death and burial? Lots of interesting things hidden into a very brief statement. Okay, now we're going to go on.
I have one comment.
Excuse me. Who paid? There's no such thing. He had expenses for his funeral. I had to I'm a solo agent, so I had to make my trust up and prepare for my funeral when it happens, because I had to have the trust do something. So it was, I think there was some cost in psychological thing when they buried Aaron, because he was treated, in my opinion, he was treated not too well I think because he helped Moses lead the people out and he didn't go to the promised land. And I still say they had funeral plans for, there was no big funeral for no shiva, no nothing. No, you know what I'm talking about? I think I have something there in my own planning for my own funeral. I want this to happen, and that he didn't even leave any instructions for his funeral.
Yeah. You mentioned something which is contemporaneously interesting. You know the Jewish response to incinerating a body. And there is a minor upsurge in Jews doing that. But the funeral directors, I read the most interesting things. You ought to come and read, my magazines. The funeral directors are reporting that the interest of Jews in that has capped or is decreasing. The Holocaust images still are powerful enough to drive down the numbers of people who are going to say, this is cheaper, this is better for the environment, both are true, and why should I occupy a piece of ground? Land is limited, that's also true. But Jews are having a hard time. So guess what? There is a new form, a chemical form of cremation. And this is attracting strong interest in the environmental community. I'm not going to go into the formula, but basically the individual and a mixture of appropriate chemicals are introduced to each other. And the net result is a bit of a slush that represented all, Donna, don't you do that. That represents a slush that is the remnants of the person. So a group of Orthodox rabbis in the past few weeks have been asked, will this be different than cremation? Answer, no. As much as we don't like or approve of, support cremation, we don't approve of, support this either. Okay, just interesting. Tamara is saying one of the nice things about ground burial, it does preserve green space and protects it from eager realtors. That is a strike against the development industry. Okay, I see Steve, I see Tracy.
Just as a minor aside, you were talking about monks, and recently they are looking at making a new Catholic saint, because apparently there every once in a while is a person who, even though not embalmed, does not disintegrate after several years. And apparently that's a sign of being touched by God and makes you eligible for sainthood in the Catholic Church.
One of my favorite Broadway songs, I'm gonna live forever. I'm gonna live till I die. I wish I could dance. Okay, Stacy.
Yes, Rabbi, two quick questions. Is the current tradition, Jewish tradition, to embalm bodies when they die? Is that currently what gets done? And then my second question is the reason that cremation has, I guess, historically been not accepted in Judaism because of the tie-in to the Holocaust, or is there another basis?
Oh, no. The objection is much older than that. For example, the rabbis believe that there is a certain bone at the stem of the spine out of which resurrection, Ezekiel style, could be created. To cremate the body, according to ancient tradition, is to impede the possibility of resurrection. And they're all, I go there, I'd love to go there, but it's interesting. But that's the original, that goes back. We do not cremate. Jewish law does not like cremation. Contemporary Jews interested in money, costs, environment, etc., have been interested, but it was expected, if you will, to become major. It hasn't. And that's interesting in and of itself. That's interesting. You had another question that I forgot?
No embalming.
No embalming. The traditional Jewish burial is not embalming.
Oh.
I remember, I maybe like you, I remember my first funerals in a variety of settings. My first non-embalmed Orthodox funeral was of a very, very, very close friend of ours, Shragai Cohen, who was buried in Israel according to Israeli standards, wrapped in a white linen sheet. And you could see under the sheet the outlines of a greatly physically diminished body already. It was much smaller than Shragai used to be. This was the body. This is what they place in the ground. And this is what Orthodox require, that the body be in contact with dirt and not in a coffin sealed from dirt, from the earth to the earth. So that would be the Orthodox style. We are running out of time. I have this great thing here that I want to share with you. It's called Stanley Davids Looks at the Number 7. Okay? And I looked at the number 7 because 7 comes up a lot. Ibn Ezra points to the number 7 frequency in the religious calendar. Ibn Ezra does that. The 7th day, Shabbat. The 7th week, Shavuot. The 7th month, Tishrei. The 7th year, sabbatical year. 7 burnt offerings for festivals, twice 7 on Sukkot. 7 sprinklings in the temple on Yom Kippur. 7 rams for Jacob's friends, and also the astrological significance of 7, the magical use of 7 when this general, Naaman, had to be dipped 7 times in the Jordan to cure his apparent leprosy. Elijah asks Elisha to scan the skies 7 times for signs of rain. Joshua's army goes around Jericho 7 times on the 7th day. Are you getting an impression that the number 7 plays a role in Jewish life? How often is there a circumambulation at a wedding?
7 times.
7 times. It used to be, or in the Orthodox conservative world, the bride walks around the groom 7 times. Now, often the bride walks around 3 times, the groom walks around 3 times, and 1 time they walk around together. However you do it, you still got 7. 7 is still there.
And today is the first day of the 7th month.
Ooh. Now, what do I do with that? Okay. All right. In this double Sedra, you also have Balak and Balaam, or Bilam in the Hebrew, who want to curse the Jewish people. You remember? And Bilam comes up with what phrase? Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob.
Oh, I was reminded of that when I was cruising through Denali State Park, a national park in Alaska. God gave us a beautiful, beautiful tent to live in. I saw the mountains and the streams and everything in the park, and God made the earth as like a beautiful tent for us in order for us to live after they do the other creations.
It is that. I'm just going to offer one little midrash, which was part of the 3-hour presentation I had prepared for today. Why did Bilam look at the Israelite spread out and was so moved that he said, "How goodly are your tents, O Jacob"? The rabbis say it's because when the Israelites pitched tent, they pitched their tents so that nobody could see inside the tent of anyone else. That the Israelite community formed a community based upon respect for privacy. I leave you with that. Is that nice? That's nice. Bye, Merle. We are now going to go to Kaddish. And lest I forget, thank you for today. Thank you so very much. Those who have passed away during the past month: Lynn Alston, Jeanette Bernkrant, Max Eisenberg, Jay Gagerman, Sid Mandel, Ron Mankoff, Thomas W. Sarnoff, Dahlia Schneider. Yortsites that have occurred during the past week: Eugene Abrams, Peter Bach, Rochelle Wason-Barish, Elihu Ben-Gera, Therese Ben-Zvi, Aline Jane Burkus, Frima Berman, Joseph Bialik, Jacob Blatt, Leonid Brensberg, Irene Broom, Jerry Shisvin, Gladys Cohn, Dorothy Cohn, Jim Dalla, Elizabeth Doyle, Richard Allen Ehrman, Julie Eisenstantlin Fields, Matthew Gantz, Lloyd Gittleson, Kimberly Glover, Dora Goldberg, Joseph Goldberg, Barbara Goldberg, Edith Goldfein, Barbara Goldschmidt, Miriam Goodman, Lucille Green, Henrietta Haim, Louis Hakimi, Charlotte Hirsch, Helen Hockenberg, Kalia Itzkowitz, Sylvia Jacobson, Henry Jasny, Shirley Kamens, Burton Kaplan, Gilbert Kaplan, Regina Karlinski, Martin Kaufman, Minnie Kent, Stephen Kessler, Sylvia Kupchik, Lillian, Marion Kurtz, Bernard Kurtzman, Hyman Lagsman, Leon Lapidus, Harry Lazinta, Jeanette Levin, Louise Rose Levine, Morris Levy, Sidney Levine, Mildred Lewis, Beatrice Linton, Bloom, Margaret Lipman, Abe London, Sonny Lowy, Louise Martin, Selma Melvoin, Joseph Marini, Mel Murren, Franklin Meserve, Sheila Grace White Miller, Ruth Mindling, Madeline Moran, Suzanne Fine Murphy, Rose Pullman, Tony Ramier Coleman, Kenneth Redcamp, Israel Rittberg, Pauline Roberts, Suzanne Rocker, Lee Rockland, Rose Romick, Ralph Rosenbluth, Martin Ross, Sherwin Schwartz, Sidney Seif, Eugene Shakin, Walter Shemis, Isaac Shaw, Kent Sherman, Gertrude Sigaloff, Martin Small, Samuel Spalter, Charles Stein, Janet Stein Sapir, Pamela Stone, Henry Sugarman, Fred Tarter, Stan Tendler, Harry Tischerman, Dora Weinstein, Saul Blonder, Marvin Weisburn, Lynn Wolf, Arthur David Zuckerman. If there are other names to be remembered at this time, I would ask that you speak their names aloud now or hold those names in your hearts. I apologize for mispronunciations. We bear in mind as well the names of those who died in defense of the United States of America, especially as July 4th is upon us. We remember those who died in defense of the state of Israel. We remember those who died through senseless acts of terror and of horror. Remember those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We join together now in the words of Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Almad Yizrahu, V'yamu, V'chayekol, V'chayekol Israel, Agalav Yehi Shmei Rabbah, Mevorach Me'atam, Me'olam Yomei Alaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitba'ar, Yitamam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shnei Dekudisha, Brichu, Le'ela Minko, Shirata, Tushata, Nechamata, Tamiran Bi'alma, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah, V'chayim, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Rabbav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. May God who makes peace in the high places make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families and nations of earth. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Have a wonderful Shabbat, everybody. Thank you for today. Thank you. Thank you. And stay well, be well. Have a happy July 4th. Be safe.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Hi,
shalom.
Steve.
Wow. Okay. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Did I see Effie? Effie was here.
Yeah, I came very late.